So I'm going to go from like a dating app perspective right now.
Okay.
Guys, we don't care about a fish. We don't care about a fish. Like, you don't need to have one of your profile pictures on the app be with you and a fish.
Okay.
Your dog is okay.
Okay.
A cat, we'll accept it.
But
Anyway,
not a fish.
always a pet peeve for mine. And I would...
Pet peeve.
I'm so cute. Nice.
Well, hey everyone, welcome to this week's episode of The Boundless Show. This is Lisa Anderson here with you, and we have made it through both Halloween and a national election here in the U.S., so I'm hoping that we are at least breathing somewhat a collective sigh of relief to be into November, heading towards Thanksgiving, all the things. You know that we've been referencing beginning today our Advent experience that we're going to be launching. And so make sure that you get the deets for that. Remember, you will be texting Advent to 32728. So I hope that you're going to join us for that. Okay, here we are for our roundtable. And those of you who were with us last week know that we talked to a group of guys in their 30s about dating in your 30s. And of course, we would be remiss if we didn't allow the women their turn. And so today I have got three fantastic ladies here at the table to talk about dating in your 30s, the girls edition of this. So welcome to Brittany, Morgan, and Megan. You guys are so good.
Thank you.
All right. I'm not sure. I mean, we were talking about angst around just the culture and past weeks, you know, the election and all this kind of stuff. I don't know. I feel like a lot of people are super angsty about dating. It's so hilarious because we talk about this so often on the Boundless Show, but I feel like every time I talk to like people, you know, grandparents and stuff, they're always like, I don't know, it wasn't that hard. Like, it was really fun for me. And I met my wife when I was 17 and just whatever. I feel,
Appreciate that comment.
I just feel, or 17, I mean, 17 maybe was old for them. I feel like some people are like, we were friends in grade school and all this stuff. And it just can be discouraging because you're like, why is it so hard? I remember my mom saying the same thing to me, like, Lisa, it shouldn't be this hard. And I'm like, Mom, it shouldn't. I know. I totally know. And so we have to break this down and give people some hope for where they are. And so I want you guys to start with just, let's get a little piece of your story in this, because everyone knows I'm now out of my 30s, okay, and I'm still single. So, but I'm not the only one. No. Okay. So they're like, yeah, Lisa, we've heard enough about you. Okay. We don't need your story. So I want to bring other ladies to the table, you ladies, and give us a little overview of just kind of where you are. We actually have one married girl at the table here, Brittany. So yay. She got married in her 30s. Yay. But give us a little bit. Yeah. I know. Yeah. Give us a little bit of your current scene. And then in light of that, I want to kind of go ahead and feel free to launch into my next question, which kind of we're going to slide into that, is compare and contrast dating now in your 30s versus when you were in your 20s. Just your thoughts about it. What's the same? What's different? So just kind of all of that in one space. And so Brittany, since I kind of pseudo-introduced you, go ahead and start.
Yes. So I will say that in my 20s, I was shy, even though I'm an extrovert, and I was not very flirty. So if guys probably didn't know I liked them. So I did not date very much in my 20s. Okay. And so in my 30s, I actually did like full throttle.
You became 30, flirty, and thriving.
Yes, I did.
Okay.
But probably a little bit feeling like desperate, right? Like just putting myself out there. I was like, I need to do that more. So yeah, did the whole like eHarmony thing, dating apps thing, whatnot. I actually met my husband at work. And so I'm 37 now. We got married earlier in this year. So we've only known each other for 2 years, but for, I would say 4 years leading up to meeting him, I was pretty intentional with.
You were on it.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
I was.
Which is so wild. It just goes to show that you can be online. You can have your fingers in a number of different puddings, as my grandma would say. Okay. I'm just saying, metaphorically speaking. So that's good. And then it's just like, hey, it happened to be someone at work, but it doesn't mean that it couldn't have been someone else.
Yeah, it could have been a different means. Yeah.
All right. Got it. Morgan, how about you?
I am just entering my 30s, a couple years in, and I am on the dating scene now. So I entered my 30s in a committed relationship, and then that didn't work out, and so now I'm just back into dating and meeting people, and I did the online dating in my 20s a lot. I think I was a little bit like a status symbol of how many dates could I get online within a week or a month or whatever. And I had some pretty high numbers, I'm not going to lie.
I mean, not that it's a competition, but whatever.
I know. I'm so sorry. I did make it one, though, in my head. I wanted to be the best at that.
Okay.
And that was my status. And now in my 30s, I think I'm a little more selective. I think sometimes, culture says switch that and lower your standards and date more. But I think I'm kind of a little bit dating less now that I know who I am and what I want. And in friendships, I can more quickly, not always correctly, but see a red flag or maybe a cautionary, moment. And I'm a little more selective in who I want to say yes to.
So and I'm not meaning to say this in a judgy way, but it's going to come across this way. So what would you say, what didn't work in your 20s then? So clearly you had the numbers.
I know. But I think quantity over quality. I think I was so willing to go on a date with anyone and so desperate and hoping, and I did not expect to be 28 and single. My mom, love her to death, she would say I was 28 when I had you, and I was like, awesome. Super, thank you for that reminder. Right. Yeah. But and it was all loving, but I was I don't know how to do this if I don't try every hat on. Let's try every single thing. And so I would go on dates with guys who I didn't think were cute, but who knows? Or we don't have anything in common, but you never know. Yeah. And I tried it all, and I think that was helpful, and it taught me a little bit more of what I'm looking for and hoping for. But also I got a quick lesson in the idea of marrying your best friend. I kind of hate that. But when I look at it, I'm okay, I want to be around someone who's safe and kind and cheers me on, not just the hottest guy in the room. Yeah. So I learned a lot of hard lessons very quickly. So it's a pressure cooker, I feel in my 20s. And now, I don't know if that answers your question, but that's great. Now a little bit more selective. Okay.
Side note to that, my mom was 42 when she had me, and look at how amazing I am, ladies. So there is hope. There's hope. Yes. Okay.
Love that.
All right, Megan, give us your situation.
Yeah, I actually just exited my 30s this weekend. So I'm on the back end now.
And happy birthday.
Thank you. But yeah, in my 20s, I think I definitely felt more pressure in my 20s to date and get married, because in my mind, that's how my life was supposed to go. I was going to graduate college, I was going to get the great job, I was going to meet the right man, I was going to have kids, 2 kids and a dog by the time I was 25. And so the pressure, I think I felt it a little bit more. Thankfully, not from any of my friends and family. That was all self-induced pressure, I guess, because my family, I've never felt any pressure from my friends and family. If anything, I have felt more support and encouragement in that, they're looking at me going, Megan, we don't know either. Dad has offered arranged marriages and things like that. But
well, bless his heart.
So exactly. So I have felt more of the support from that angle from my friends and family. So it was definitely more self-induced pressure in my 20s. And then I didn't do the dating apps or anything like that in my 20s. I was frankly terrified of them, going, I'm not going to meet a guy online. Like, that's creepy. I don't want to do that. So like in college, I was active in campus ministries and I was in a sorority and all that fun stuff. And so I just figured I'd find him there. But then into my 30s, I've been just more confident, kind of like what you were saying, Morgan, more confident in who I am, more confident in what I want. And I think my standards haven't changed, but my ideals have shifted. So again, in my 20s in college, I was drawn to the like 6'3" basketball player, super active, super handsome, that type of thing. Now, if the Lord wants to bring me a 6'3" basketball player, that's great. But those ideals have shifted and to where it's like my standards are still there. He's got to be a godly man. He's got to be a leader. He's got to be a good conversationalist, you know, those types of things. But the shift of the ideals of like exactly what he is has shifted now into my 30s.
That's good. Yeah. And I do want to circle back. I mean, Morgan, you alluded to this and Brittany weigh in as well. What would you say is different about your 30s, about both maybe your maturity, what has changed for you as far as what's important, and then also kind of what you're seeing in guys as far as, you know, I don't know, good, bad, or ugly, as far as like just how would you say it's distinctly different dating in your 30s than your 20s?
Yeah, I'm not 100% sure I can put like a quippy line to it, but I think that my ideals are the same. Like I want to have someone who, you know, is also a godly man, can also lead, all those things too, and now that all the guys are also in their 30s that I'm looking at, they've experienced more of life and they have a little better handle on, okay, I have walked through something really hard and challenging and this is what I've learned. So in the 20s, you're walking through those things a lot of times and you're in the midst of it. But I think in my 30s and in their 30s, they're like, oh yeah, I've experienced that and this is what I learned. So I think, I don't know, hopefully having more mature of a group in front of me to look at, but also I've learned a lot from my friends who've gotten married and their struggles and the character qualities of their husbands who I'm like, oh yes, I love that. It's changed a lot from your 20s, but this has turned into something cool now. But
yeah, that's good.
Yeah.
I think for me, for dating, I realized I need to maybe check my pride a little bit. So whereas Morgan was talking about doing a lot more in her 20s, I was like, Brittany, you haven't tried these things like online dating. Give it a try. Now, here's what I didn't do. I didn't tell my family because I didn't want the pressure from my family, right? Okay. But I told my friends, specifically like a really solid, godly female friend, be like, hey, vet this with me. And she would hold me accountable. Like, is it just the good looking guy? Is that why you're swiping right? Yeah. That type of thing.
Or are you just like online with guys 8 hours a day and not doing, that's super sketch.
It can really bog you down and be a time waster. But just being open to being set up, let your friends do it now with discretion, right? Like if I were to go to Megan and just say, hey, there's a guy that's a single Christian man. Do you want to, you'd be like, well, Brittany, you know me. So tell me what about him is good for me. And I think that I became more aware of that as I got older because people tried to set me up in my 20s and early 30s and I would say no.
Yeah. No, that's great. Yeah. Okay, so here's a question. I also asked both of these questions of the guys. So this is your turn to answer them. And it's going to be, what is something that guys do in dating that they need to stop doing? And then I'm going to ask you what women need to stop doing as well. So you can tell on yourselves, but let's start with the guys, just to make sure we have time to get that in. What would you say? What just drives you bonkers, especially with guys who are now around your age, kind of similar stage of just like, guys, you'll help yourselves out if you stop doing this?
Yeah.
You got it?
Okay. Yeah.
Go ahead, Meg.
I don't know if I can make like a general sweeping statement of like, hey, all guys need to do this or stop doing this because each guy is different. I mean, I can tell you about an experience I've just recently had.
Yes, please.
Of just a guy that like, as we were talking, he was very responsive to me, but he didn't initiate very well. Like, I was giving him softballs of like, how was your weekend? And he would answer, but he wouldn't turn it back and say, how was yours? So for him, I would be like, I need you to engage. I need you to at least express some interest back. I appreciated him being responsive. So like, it was fun to have that. And like, I can have a conversation with someone. Like I can carry a conversation. But so like for him, that would be how I would say, like, just engage a little bit more and take the initiative and shoot your shot, I guess. So I can't say a sweeping one, but just each individual guy, I think I've had those experiences with to be able to say, hey, that one, this is what how you can help yourself in the future.
Well, and that's so true because it reminds me of women's frustration and where guys come in with this as well of like, well, sometimes women come across as too aggressive or too forward or whatever. And I'm like, well, yeah, if we're put in the position of being an interviewer and you're not even like making this a conversation because it's just an interrogation because I'm trying to find out, then I might seem a little aggressive because I'm like, tell me about that, whatever. So that's a great point.
So I'm going to go from like a dating app perspective right now.
Okay.
Guys, please do not have a shirtless picture. Also, we don't care about a fish. We don't care about a fish. Like, you don't need to have one of your profile pictures on the app be with you and a fish.
Okay.
Please don't. About your dog is okay. Okay. A cat, we'll accept it.
But
anyway,
not a fish.
Always a pet peeve for mine. And I would...
Pet peeve.
I'm sorry. Nice. But yeah, like that was super, it was funny for me. But also I would swipe left because the quality is not there in my opinion if you are giving that much attention. But in all seriousness, what I've always appreciated is the phrase, clarity is kind, right? So if you are interested in a lady, being like, hey, do you want to go to lunch sometime next week? It'd be great. My treat. It is a low pressure situation. You say my treat, and so there's a little bit of perk of like, oh, that's nice.
Yes, please.
I don't have to like awkwardly like go to pay for mine, and then you're like, no, I got it. You know, but actually showing some initiative. It doesn't need to be high pressure, and I think they would appreciate it.
That's funny. That's good.
I love that.
Yeah,
Oh, I love that so much. My treat. What a simple phrase.
2 words.
Okay, one thing I was thinking about this one thing that I want guys to stop doing in dating is I think putting so much pressure on date number 1. I've had some sweet guys that I've been on dates with that I really
have that with
enjoy.
the guy?
I know. Surprisingly so. I mean, it goes both ways. But specifically, like, I think especially in the 30s, like, okay, if I don't know if I want to marry you after date 1, I know I've experienced this, but I've also seen it more and more in guys too, of like, well, there wasn't chemistry. Like, okay, well, you're still a stranger. Do you remember her hometown? Does that matter? Like, let's just take a deep breath and focus on like curiosity and friendship. Like, did you enjoy your time? If so, yes. If yes, then try number 2.
Yeah.
So it's been an interesting shift to see, like, I remember being like, I mean, I'm wound up half the time anyways of like, oh my gosh, can I see us having cute children? Like, take a deep breath.
Yeah.
Did you have a good time? Did you like how you showed up? Were you kind of nervous? Okay, can you give it another shot? And I've experienced that myself. I mean, a couple dates more recently of like, oh, they said they didn't want to go out with me anymore because of X, Y, and Z. And I'm like, how did you determine that from 2 total hours of spending time with me?
Yeah.
Wow. That is so much pressure to show up perfectly, to present myself wholly in 1 hour with a stranger.
Yeah.
It's
That's
bonkers.
That's a great point. Okay, turning the tables. What about women? What do you guys need to stop doing?
Nothing.
I mean,
We're perfect.
Yeah. Well, I was going to say, because I would think what you said, Morgan, is often women are blamed for doing that.
Right.
Like after one date, she was writing our names together, or she was,
telling everybody at the church.
Maybe almost the opposite of it then, because getting too eager rather than, oh, there wasn't instant fireworks, so I'm not okay with that.
Yeah.
Or,
and I've had that feedback from some girlfriends, sorry to jump back, but of like, oh, he said there wasn't any chemistry. And I'm like, gosh, I would hope there wouldn't be some wild chemistry on date one. We're strangers. Like, if romance is what you're after, then that's probably not me. Like, maybe eventually after we know each other well and I've learned that from you, but on date one.
But is there potential?
Yeah. Is there potential?
Are you looking for potential?
Yeah. That's a good
Or
word.
do you see potential?
Yeah.
Awesome.
But I'll jump into the ladies part because I do this all the time. But maybe this is too broad of a stroke, but just to relax. Like, I think in the same vein, I get worked up too often. And I think I need to remember, like, it's fine. It's going to be fine. Like, my whole life is not dependent on how this 90-minute coffee goes with this man. This is small beans. Like, just relax and take a deep breath. So, so stop. Just deep breaths.
Yeah. And why is it that with other people, we can easily say, it's okay. I'm just into the grandma sayings here this time. So I'm going to say, like, again, grandma, hey, grandma, you know, we say stuff like there's a lid for every pot and there's more fish in the sea and whatever.
Those aren't helpful.
But yet when it comes to dating, it's like we think we have to win every time. Like every guy, if we don't get every guy interested in us or we take it personally or like there's some flaw in us and stuff. And
well, it's because we're hopeful. That's what I go back to. Like times when I've been upset and like I've had a friend be like, Brittany, you said he wasn't fun, and you weren't into him. Like he wasn't.
But I wanted him to think I was fun, even if he's not fun.
And then I feel rejected, but it's because I'm hopeful. Like I'm hopeful for a future. It was a great guy or whatnot.
Right. You know? And it's almost like this arbitrary, like nebulous. Like, what are you hopeful for? You don't even know him. To Morgan's point. Okay, that's good.
Yeah. I would say enjoying the process more. So it's piggybacking off of what Morgan said of just relaxing, enjoying the process. But I do think that there's a balance between, sure, maybe you don't go out and look at wedding rings after the first date, but I do think that there's a balance between enjoying the process and like relaxing, but also letting yourself be excited and letting yourself kind of have that. Now, you do run the risk of falling hard then if you let yourself get excited, whether it's you fall hard emotionally or you fall hard because he says he doesn't want to go on a second date or whatever. So there's a balance, because I think if we don't show any excitement or any hope or any like, hey, I see a possibility or I see a little bit of a spark, then what are we showing to him? Because if it's clear, I don't know, I guess if it's clear that the spark is not there and we're not showing any kind of enthusiasm, whether we marry this guy or not, he's another man. I mean, he's another person. Yeah. And so that was what a friend of mine encouraged me with. I was processing through something with her, and she's like, well, Megan, you just love people. Like, you love getting to know people. And so that's why you're disappointed, is because you're trying to get to know this guy just as a person. And so you're grieving and having to deal with just the loss of getting to know another human being. And so I think there's a balance that we have to walk of being excited, giving him encouragement, saying, hey, you could ask me out again and I would say yes, or you could ask for my number and I would say yes, and still guarding. Yeah,
so. Exactly. You know, it's I haven't quoted this a long time in Boundless, but it reminds me of a book I read back in the day where the guy was like, yeah, you know, men like to pursue. They like to be the ones who are initiating or hunting or going on the chase or whatever. But ladies, it's okay to snap some twigs and let them know that you're there.
That's what I did.
Okay. She snapped some twigs.
I did.
All right. See,
I had my wee lady.
Okay. So to that end, because I think this is a great point that a lot of guys think, but they don't often vocalize it. And so I'm going to ask it in terms of you giving advice to the ladies on this front. How can you, as a 30-something woman, continue to pursue growth and maturity and all the things, you know, becoming healthy, all those kinds of things that you want to evidence as you're maturing and stuff like that? So give some examples for that, but keeping in mind that how do you do that without becoming the stereotypical, it's okay. I don't need a man. I'm now self-sustaining. I'm a woman of independent means. I'm a woman who's got it all, and maybe I can tack on a man in the future or whatever. Because I feel like that attitude threatens to creep in, even into Christian women, as we maybe have been burned, maybe have been frustrated, as we just kind of get a little more self-assured. So speak to that a little bit. Brittany, you can start
I'll start.
Yeah. Because you have opinions.
I do have opinions. No, one thing that was frustrating for me was people saying, maybe it's time for you to go to a new church. Like, maybe that's... And so one thing that I've really hold true to is, like, God placed you where you are for a reason until he tells you to move, right? So, like, stay committed where you are. If you work in children's ministry, you're going to be around potentially non-single people, but that's okay, right? Like, God called you at that specific church, at that specific ministry, but it also doesn't mean that you are bound by that. If we're on the Boundless show, we're not bound by that, right? So, like, be open if a friend invites you to another event at another church. You never know. You never know.
That's good.
Yeah. I'm just trying to continue to just cultivate relationships. And so whether that's in a community group or it's in just like being active, whether it's in church or at work or at the gym or whatever, just trying to continue to cultivate relationships because those relationships are going to feed into me, whether it's people that are going to encourage me in my spiritual walk, or they're going to encourage me in my time management, or they're going to encourage me professionally. So trying to have a wide range of people that are in my life, older, younger, married, single, families, all of that, because each one of those people are going to be able to bring in different experiences and their own perspectives. And so, like, I'll tend to go to my married friends when I have these types of situations and questions of, like, how would you process through this? Or, you know, I might talk to my best friend, but then her husband will weigh in. And those are some of the best conversations because not only do I know that they care about me, they're also excited about and care about my future. So just cultivating those relationships and then, you know, keeping your eyes open, but going in without that mindset of, I'm going to join this community group to find a husband because I'm just going to get disappointed most likely.
Okay.
Yeah, I thought the same thing. And talking to a friend earlier, just, you know, I'm going to have to be pursuing growth in spiritual maturity in my whole life. So why would I put spouse before any of that? So yeah, to stay committed to Alana, shout out, even though it's mostly parents in there. I love it. It's so much to go to my same church, even though I'm like, have I dated every guy here? Probably. Like, I'm just gonna keep going.
Whether in your 20s or your 30s, who even knows?
They were tall.
That's so good.
They're in their 30s now.
Yeah.
I'll try them again.
That's great.
Yeah, just like growth is going to be first no matter what, if I have a spouse or not. So yeah that's my 2 cents.
Well, and to that point, I mean, I think the one thing I want to add is that we approach dating, we approach so many things in our lives, whether it's a job search, whether it's a location change, whether it's whatever, with our timeline, our process of how this needs to happen for it to work out the best that it can. And until we factor God in, who can put something in our path at the drop of a hat, who can orchestrate, you know, I've thought to myself, man, I could marry someone that I met 15 years ago and they might show up again. And all of a sudden there's ground that we don't have to cover because we have that history or whatever. You know, we don't know what God is going to do. And so all we can do is that next step in front of us. And that's what we have available to us. And so we do our part. We can trust God with the rest.
Yeah.
And so
Absolutely.
you guys, thank you so much for being honest and open about this. And I am encouraged, and I hope those of you listening are as well. And guys, if you listened in, I'm grateful. So we appreciate you too. So thanks, ladies.
Thank you.
Thanks, Lisa.